You can just bear with me. I'm just getting the I'm just getting the live broadcast. It's just setting up.
Okay, apologies. We had the live streaming message, so I think we've probably gone live. Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah.
Hi, Chair. Sorry, I'm here for Anna Basford, Lisa Williams from CHFT.
Thank you, Lisa. So we'll record Anna's apologies as well. So Janet, did you have any more?
Yes, Chair, if you can just bear with me, I'm just going to bring the list up. Councillor Monteith has sent her apologies. Councillor Mrs. Swift sent her apologies. And that's it, I think, from the councillors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And as I said, Councillor Wilkinson, let me know. He'll be okay. Okay, thank you. Item 2 then is just to remind members of the need to declare any pecuniary other interests that may arise. Item 3, admission of the public. There are no items for which we need to exclude press and public. And then item 4 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of January. Does anybody have any problems with agreeing those as a correct record? No, in that case, we will agree them and sign them off. Thank you. Item 5, question time. I'm assuming we've not had notice of any questions. No, again, not seeing anything. Okay, that's great. So item 6, we've put on the agenda update on the membership of the board. So I think this is just an oral report really to say that now we've been running in the statutory format for a year. You know, there are a couple of things that have come to light that that we need to take into account as we look to reappoint the board following the council's AGM, but also one or two other changes. So, for example, I'm having a meeting with the chair of the Adult Safeguarding Board next week, who wanted a discussion about how the Safeguarding Board and work feeds into this board. Now, my personal view is there is already cross membership between, and I think the separation is important, and I think the current arrangement we have with formal presentation of the annual reports from both of the safeguarding boards to this board is the right way forward. But we'll just make sure that relationship is clearly understood, I think. Secondly, in terms of NHS England and their involvement, people who've been on the board for some time will remember that Yasmin Khan from NHS England used to be a good attender at this board. Her role's now changed, and NHS England are looking at appropriate representation going forward. And I welcome this morning Rachel Robinson from NHS England, who's joining us this morning. I understand, Rachel, you may or may not have this role on a permanent basis, but you're very welcome and very welcome to contribute to our discussions as well. Thank you. And just to clarify, and I think just to record our thanks to Dr. Caroline Taylor, who was a regular attendee at this board as a representative of the CCG. Of course, since the CCG ceased to exist, the representation now comes through the ICB place, which is Robin's role as place lead and Neil, and then also representation from the Clinical and Professional Forum, which is Stephen Clearsby and Penny Woodhead. Obviously, that'll be up for review in due course. But I just thought, given the length of time Caroline was with us, it was also an opportunity to record in minutes our thanks to Caroline for her contributions, and I know she'll continue to contribute to the partnership in the future. The other issue we want to look at and clarify going forward is the relationship between this board and the Calderdale Cares Place Board, and I think there has been a discussion about the independent chair of the Place Board being invited to these meetings and potentially a reciprocal arrangement. So again, that's something we will clarify as we review the relationship going forward. So I'll pause for any comment on that. Mike, you want to come in?
Just to say, Chair, we do have an updated list that I will circulate to members with the minutes, which they may find helpful.
Thanks. That would be great, and that would be appreciated. And of course, Councillor Evans, you're taking on a slightly different role next year. I don't know whether that will preclude you from continuing on here, but you'll be very welcome either way.
Thank you. I'm not sure what effect it has, but if I can attend, I will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, so if there's no other questions or comments on that, item 7, the health and wellbeing strategy, and as you know, we focus on one element, try to focus on at least one element of the strategy at each meeting, and this month we're looking at the Developing Well update, and I'll ask Julie to introduce and talk to the report that's been circulated.
Thanks very much, Councillor Swift. Morning, everybody. It's Julie Jenkins, Director of Children and Young People's Services for the Council, and I'm the Chair of the Developing Well Board. I do have a short presentation that I'd like to share with the board, Councillor Swift, if that's okay. So in a minute, I'm going to see whether I can share my screen okay with everybody and just take you through it. But just in terms of introduction, members of the Health and Wellbeing Board will be very much aware that we've split the health and wellbeing strategy into the 4 age courses, and Developing Well is around post 5-year-olds up to 25. And young people chose the aim of that board is that every 15-year-old in Calderdale has hope and aspiration. And when we started meeting as a strategic board, we started to try and understand what was going to make the difference to give 15-year-olds in Calderdale hope and aspiration. And what we realised is it is very different if you're 15 and how you feel, or when you're 22 and you're looking back at when you were 15 and what would have made a difference, and how you feel when you're 6 or 7 about where you want to be in the future. And what we said is there are a lot of strategic boards and operational boards already in Calderdale doing some great work around support for young people, and we didn't want to be another talking shop where we just took reports and held other boards to account. That we really wanted to do something a little bit different. So we have engaged with Ideas Alliance, who are a non-profit making company who've done a lot of appreciative inquiry work, and they are working with the council already on refreshing our vision for 2024 with partners. So we are working with Ideas Alliance on that piece of work and seeking a really broad range of young people's views. So I'm going to just share my screen. Hopefully, it's actually disabled from participant screen sharing. I don't know whether Mike or Janet, you can change it, or
can you try now, please, Julie?
Thanks, Janet. Let's have a look. Can people see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just put it on slideshow.
Yeah.
Okay. So this presentation has been put together by Vicky Cullen and Kate Hawkins, who are doing the work with us with the partnership. And just to quickly touch on the aims, I've covered some of this already, but the aim of this is to understand what is going to give hope and aspiration to our young people. I'm going to take you through the appreciative inquiry model that we're using so that you can understand. But what it's based on is trusted relationships with people who already work in the borough with our young people. So we're not bringing in external people or external consultants to do a one-off piece of consultation. It's actually getting everybody geared up in Calderdale who's got those frontline relationships to do this for us, and looking at the potential of using an online tool called Polis. We're not sure whether we're going to do this, but it does give us the opportunity to reach even more young people. I'll come on to that shortly. So what we want to do is build something that's sustainable. As I said, we don't want to do a one-off. They want to get something in place where we could keep doing this and asking young people for their views on an ongoing basis. So this is the plan that we have in place. We're in the middle at the moment of some engagement and co-design workshops. And in true Calderdale style, the partnership have turned out in force to these stakeholder events. So we've had a couple already on the 13th of March, and we've got another one coming up, a co-design workshop on the 20th of March. So the first part of it is engaging the frontline practitioners who work with young people. And then there's a discover and dream phase that Ideas Alliance are going, this is the exciting bit when you think about the what if. The Polis tool, if we use it, it'll be used there between the last 2 weeks in April. And then we're going to try and make sense of everything that we get back, because this is going to be quite broad ranging, I would imagine, about what young people want. Some of those, in terms of careers, for example, and work experience, and, is already underway with the Inclusive Economy Board. So there may be things that are already there that we just need to communicate to young people, but I'm sure there'll be lots of new things too, and reporting back in mid-May. So we've had a couple of stakeholder events, as I said, and we've had really good attendance, particularly from schools. And although this was targeted at frontline professionals, a lot of head teachers came, which was great. And we're going to make sure that we've got all the stakeholders. So, we're looking at a really broad range of professionals and voluntary sector and community groups that work with young people. And what we've heard already is head teachers are asking, what are young people going to get out of this work? They said it's really important that we as a board actually explain what difference is there going to be. And they asked about the possibility, is there a budget, a participative budget that young people could use? We've picked up how important it is that we work and design anything together with young people, which we will. Mixed reception about the online tool Polis, and people really keen to engage with young people whose voice may not normally be as strong as it could be. So just a few reflections for the board, really, Councillor Swift, and I would welcome people's comments on this around, some of the options that we can talk to young people about. What are they going to get out of this engagement? One suggestion that's been made is about a participatory budget, where we give a small amount, won't be a huge amount of money, but some money to engage young people to work on what matters to them. We could do, and I think we should do anyway, a you said, we did. So it's really clear, if you're coming forward with some views, what's going to change, and that we can be held to account as a partnership for some of the work that we do around that. But also making sure that there's this information flow from us, because there's lots of youth groups out there. We've got the Youth Council, we've got councils within schools, the Children in Care Council to talk to as well. So just in terms of co-design, as I said.
Sorry, Julie, can I just say, I thought it was just my computer playing up, but I saw a message in the chat, the slides aren't moving on the screen.
Oh, are they not?
Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Swift. Let me just have a. Let me just pop it up again and give another go. If not, I'll just finish talking to it.
You're covering it pretty well.
Can you see it there? Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the first slide, but yeah, it wasn't moving on. Yeah. That's better. Yeah.
Yeah. Reflections to offer to young people. I've covered that. Sorry, just to let people know, Naomi's joined me as well, who's been working on this and leading a lot of the work from public health. So co-design, making sure very much that young people are involved in anything that we put into place through this that I've already covered. People are very concerned, and so they should be, about reaching those who are usually less well heard. So a lot of suggestions there from the work that we've done already about children with special educational needs, young people from LGBTQ community, using our detached youth workers to get out there for young people who may not normally be heard. And just finally, just before I open it out to comments and input from the board. So we want to create a statement from us that explains to young people what are they going to get as a result of this work, because this is quite a big piece of work. And we do have the final stakeholder engagement meeting on the 13th of March, and then we'll review all of the feedback that we've got from everybody who's been engaged before we take that to the co-design event on the 20th of March. I'm just going to go back, Councillor Swift, to the slide that set out what the heads were asking. Have a look, isn't that one? Yeah. So there's some of the options there. I'll just run through them again. Participatory budgeting approach, continuing the conversation with you said we did, and an information flow using existing groups and boards as well. I'll just stop sharing there and just open it out for any questions or comments. Naomi, is there anything I've missed that you wanted to pick up?
No, I don't think so, Julie. I think the reflection so far from the stakeholders who've been involved in the events, head teachers in particular, are really important in making sure we get this right.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Naomi.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Courtney, Sarah, I'll come to you.
Yeah, thank you. I was at a corporate parenting event on Tuesday, and so I just wanted to make sure that we are capturing. So, we were talking about one of the sort of things that was talked about quite a lot was about how we engage with our young people in care and care leavers, and that's actually quite a difficult thing to do in lots of occasions, and so just sort of and obviously you know, if people are being talked, if there's engagement within schools, then that will include some of our children in care, obviously, but as corporate parents, obviously we all have a responsibility to be thinking about these as our children, so just sort of making sure that we are making a bit of extra effort, given that we know that it's quite theirs is a voice often not heard. Are we making sort of extra effort to try and capture their voices too?
Thanks for that. It's really helpful. Thanks, Councillor Courtney.
Sorry, I've come back. Gone blank on names. And come to the colleague from Health Watch. Sorry.
Hi, it's Karen. I just wondered whether we'd asked young people what kind of outputs they'd like from this work.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the work. It's asking young people to start with, because there'll be more questions as time goes on, I'm sure. But we're trying to get to understand what is it that we're not doing now that may give young people hope and aspiration in Calderdale. So it's very broad, as you can imagine. I would think there'll be quite a lot of comments around emotional well-being at the minute, and anxiety and things for young people around their emotional well-being. Obviously, we've got the Open Minds Partnership that are working full-time on this agenda. So I'm sure we'll get some really good feedback that we can give to relevant groups that are already there. But I'm hoping we get something maybe new that we haven't got or thought of that we could actually work on. So it's a very open-ended piece of consultation, really, just around that hope and aspiration. That's what they chose. Young people chose that's what they wanted us in the Health and Wellbeing Board to focus on. And for them at the age of 15, clearly we're going to talk to older young people and younger people as well. So yeah, it's very open-ended at the moment.
I'm not quite sure I phrased that in the way that I intended, actually. What I meant is, do we know from young people what would motivate them to become involved?
That's what the head teachers are asking. What are they going to get out of this?
So can we ask young people that question?
Yeah, well, they're saying young people are not going to engage unless they think they're going to get something out of it. And I'm not sure whether with young people, whether you said we did is going to cut it. I know some people say you've got the chance to win whatever, an iPad or a phone or something that's going to encourage young people to take part. I think the participatory budgeting is a good suggestion. Obviously, we'd have to identify the funding for that, but to give young people the opportunity to do something with a small budget themselves is quite a nice thing to be able to do. We do already have, for example, the Youth Council doing some fantastic work around climate change. They've been to COP26 and spoken and are very motivated around certain issues. So I think it's a little bit early to say probably at the moment, Helen. It's kind of, let's see what comes back. But I think given where the head teachers are at about saying young people need some kind of incentive, I do think we need to consider that as a board.
But can we do a pilot and ask a few young people, because actually the ideas that come back might be quite interesting as to what might motivate them. It might be quite interesting. Some might find some evidence of participation will be useful to help them on their way at the next stage of their development.
Yeah, we're not doing a pilot. We're going for whole scale, because what we want is an ability to go whole scale on this. not just around this, around other issues that come up as well in the future. We do have a snapshot from the electronic health needs assessment that we take every year around young people's emotional well-being. So we've got a benchmark there already that we're measuring. It actually did go up last year. It did improve, not by much. I think it was by a percentage. I think Debs, wasn't it? I think in terms of, and Naomi, in terms of emotional well-being, a slight increase, which is brilliant given, you know, given what's been happening in the national context. So we're not going to pilot, Helen. We're just, you know, we're going for it with the Capacity of Ideas Alliance.
It's actually Karen.
Sorry, Karen.
What I meant by the pilot is, can we not ask a subset of young people actually what would motivate them to get involved instead of taking it from head teachers?
We're actually using the practitioners who are on the ground to do this. The head teachers attended the stakeholder event, but this is really directed at learning mentors, C&K careers staff who are in schools, youth workers, anybody who's got a frontline relationship with young people. So it is going to be those people who are going to talk to our young, it's going to be the trusted adult that speaks to the young people and gets their views back.
It's an interesting topic. That's probably other commenters will probably pick up on some of that as well, I think. Debs, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, just picking up on Karen's point. This will be a very developmental process. So in terms of what's heard from the young people and what works in encouraging them to be involved will be built on and developed. Do you see what I mean? So it's not a sort, you know, it will develop as the process goes on. But the reason I put my hand up was just to say, it's so exciting, isn't it? And I'm really, really looking forward to hearing what young people are saying, what really matters to them in relation to hope and aspiration. And there's something, isn't there, about and it does sort of build a little bit, I guess, on what Karen was saying about thinking about the opportunities that young people have got to contribute. So there's that sort of, what are young people going to get out of it? And I wonder if there's a little bit about shifting the narrative around the sort of opportunities that young people will get to contribute. So I was really interested in that idea of that sort of participatory budgeting. So i.e. sort of trusting, showing young people that we trust them, give them some resources so that they can get out and find out what hope and aspiration means and what needs to happen. That feels a really exciting way of sort of young people contributing, young people sort of taking a lead really in hearing from other young people. So my ears pricked up, Julie. I thought that sounded really, really interesting and innovative. And then I guess the other sort of reflection I had on the sort of idea of, again, you said we did. Again, while that some of the things that people say are things that adults and partners need to do, I wonder if it's partly, you know, you said we did, and what are we going to do together? What are we going to do as partners together with young people, as well as sort of saying, oh, you told us to do this, so we went away and did it, but a bit more of an empowering relationship between young people and us as organisations. So, but yeah, really exciting work. Thanks for sharing it.
That's really helpful, Debs. Thank you. Councillor Courtney will know, because when we did the session, we were with the LGA looking at the corporate parenting kind of agenda on Tuesday. I was only there for a bit, but they put the participation ladder for participation, and working at the top end is with and letting them lead, us not doing it. So you're spot on. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Stephen.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah. I mean, actually, Deb said much of what I was thinking to say. I mean, it is extremely exciting. It's a fantastic area. I wonder if there's another health and wellbeing board, and obviously with all the partners that have been involved so far, so clearly focusing on seeing how 15-year-olds in their area can have more hope and aspiration. I reckon this is a unique program, or a unique local authority area, a unique health and wellbeing board. So of course it's almost groundbreaking, I would have thought. I don't think there'll be another area we can look to where they've got this sorted out, and they've got every 15-year-old in their area full of hope and aspiration. So the fact that we're trying to do it is brilliant. But of course then you've got a challenge, because there isn't so much, I guess, experience to draw upon. that's evidence-based from other areas. There might be, and I do think we need to just double check if there are other places in the country or even internationally, globally, where they've set such a challenge to themselves, and see if we can have a conversation, which is what it's really about. It's not about what can we get out of. I mean, of course, the head teachers will be thinking they've got a lot of other pressured priorities. Therefore, what if they're going to spend some time on this? What's the outcome going to be? Which I guess is all about hope and aspiration. So the conversation with the youngsters has to be, as Karen has mentioned, has got to be right there at the grassroots level, and it can be through older youth, it can be through adults who are working with them, about this, opening a dialogue around hope and aspiration, seeing what the current status is.
Yeah. Do
we have any intelligence around that at the moment? And then how can that unfold through an ongoing conversation? And then are there any programs? I mean, I know that they've said, you know, this idea of you said we did, as though we can do this. We can't do this, no matter what is said. We can create an environment. We can definitely put some time, energy and resource and capacity into it. But actually the power to give hope and aspiration will come from the youngsters as they get together, as they're empowered to think about this. And then a sort of a developmental program is put in place, which enables this hope and aspiration to flourish. I do think there are programs, I'm aware of programs globally that focus on this. I was a little bit responsible for sticking this in. I don't know if you remember when we had the workshop, Hope and Aspiration, there were about 3 or 4 areas, and I was championing this. There are programs that actually have this as one of their main outcomes, and they operate globally. So I wouldn't mind an opportunity to feed some of that learning in if it's possible. And of course, yeah, it's got to be an ongoing conversation with young people, but this is really exciting.
Thank you, Stephen. Ashley. Hello.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, agree with colleagues. Some good stuff going on here. Great to the focus on the young people's voice. In terms and linking up perhaps with some of the references to you said we did, I presume there's some form of ongoing communication, two-way process, which does feed back to the young people and let them know what's going on a regular basis. And I presume that it would also be with those who had the initial input, so that they see a specific response to their input. But yes, some really good stuff coming up here, and potentially much more so. And therefore, I would also just say, from a sort of scrutiny type point of view, I would hope that the feedback from this process, the ongoing nature of it, will come back and be built into our work programme, so that we see what's going on with this exciting project, because I think all of us would like to see the outcomes from this, and we expect and assure that there will be some very positive outcomes. So thank you for the work so far, and I look forward to what happens in the future as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. If I can comment on a couple of points, I think that's been a really interesting discussion, and clearly the engagement with young people in this is going to be a dynamic process, and of itself is going to shape what we need to do going forward. Been reflecting that I think Stephen, and rightly, I mean, I think Stephen's right. This is quite a different approach, and it would be interesting to know if anyone else is exploring anything similar. I think this is really quite challenging when you think about it, because an awful lot of the conversation, and I think it probably challenges us to think about how we present some of the work we're doing and the issues we need to deal with, because an awful lot of the language around young people at the moment, actually, it seems to me, is not encouraging them to have hope and aspirations, for good reasons sometimes. You know, we talk a lot about the dangers of social media and online bullying and the threat of county lines, and obviously got a host of safeguarding issues and concerns rightly within there. But and similarly, of course, talk about the impacts of the pandemic on young people's mental health. All of these messages are true and pose important challenges for us, but the overall messaging for young people doesn't sound incredibly positive when you pull all of those things together. So I think we are setting ourselves a real challenge of how do you not lose sight of all those incredibly important things, but actually at the same time say, you know, this is what we want for our young children. We want to empower you. We want to give you choices. We want you to feel that you're getting to 15 and 16 with a real sense of how things could be better. You know, don't have any answers to that. I suppose in a sense there's some parallel with the dialogue around older people, of moving a conversation away from older people as a burden who need care towards a huge resource who have the right to maximize their lives. And it's not dissimilar, but perhaps even more important in that the expectations we're building into young people at the age of 14, 15, 16 are going to shape their future for years and decades to come. So Julie, is anything you want to come back in, or anything Naomi wants to add at the moment?
Can I just say it'd be really helpful to have a conversation with Dr. Cleesby, and if you're okay, Stephen, I'll make contact and just arrange for you and I to have a conversation. I wasn't actually at the Health and Wellbeing Board session when the 15-year-old Hope and Aspiration was chosen. So I think it'd be really good, just to hear from some of that stuff and think through a little bit more about, the research side and the national, the national and international that you've mentioned. I think if Naomi and I could have a touch base with you, that would be really helpful if it was just for half an hour. And we have covered this a little bit, haven't we, Councillor Evans, that children's scrutiny, just in, not in passing, but saying this work is underway. So again, just to have that, the eyes of elected members on this, as well as a critical friend and support, would be really welcome too. Thanks, Councillor Swift.
Thank you very much. So thank you for that presentation, and thank you for the work that's going on so far. And I know we'll come back to this in the cycle in the future. I think it's really exciting to see how this develops. Thank you. So item 8, if I can move us on then, is Calderdale Community Information Directory. And Debs, this has your name against it.
And it's going to be my colleagues Kate and Naomi actually that are going to present this item.
That's great, welcome. So over to you, Kate. Naomi.
Thank you, Councillor Swift. I'm just going to apologise first and foremost for my internet connection. I hope that everybody can hear me, but will somebody please put in the chat if you stop being able to hear what I'm saying? Hopefully Kate can take over if that happens. So just to introduce myself, Naomi Marquis, Public Health Manager for Children and Young People in Calderdale. The item that we're bringing today is the ambition to develop an online community information directory. I know that you'll have seen the brief paper that we put together in advance of the meeting. So rather than me going through that, what myself and Kate will do is just summarise the main points, open for questions, and then put our ask to the board, if that's okay. So by way of background, the reason for bringing this to the board was really just to reaffirm the strategic intent to develop this directory. So in line with our ambition to move towards greater system integration, the aspiration, I think, is to sort of better join up Calderdale's online presence, and in particular the things that are available in Calderdale to support our community. So some of those things are service support, the services that ourselves and our partners commission. Other things are things that are happening in communities, things that are community led, things that support health and wellbeing in its broadest sense. So the directory then forms part of this broader vision for an integrated digital presence. I know that the Community Information Directory is something that's been discussed previously at Health and Wellbeing Board and at other strategic groups, I think. It wasn't progressed sooner because we're tied up in pandemic response primarily, but it's something that we're wanting to pick up and progress now. Before I go any further, I'm conscious that Community Information Directory is a little bit of a buzzword. So I'll just spell out what we mean by Community Information Directory, and it's probably something that we can pick up a little bit later as well. So what we're talking about is something that brings together in one place online all the assets in local communities that can promote and support wellbeing. So as I said, this is some of our statutory things, some of the service provision from ourselves and from our partner organisations, and some of the things that are happening in communities. Some of the tangibles there, activities, groups, things that happen to support communities and support families. The vast majority of the information that I think we're talking about housing in this directory already exists online. So I think it's important that we own that from the outset. This isn't something that's radical. It's not something that's brand new. And some of it's meeting those statutory duties. Some of it's been created by voluntary and community sector organisations, and some of it's been created by communities themselves. But it's not always easily accessible. So we've got multiple sites that house this sort of information about what's going on in Calderdale. Things don't always appear on web searches. There's a lot of information that's held on platforms such as Facebook about local community things that are happening, things that are going on. Previous engagement with families and with communities has told us time and time again, actually, that people feel overwhelmed by the wealth of information out there. They struggle to navigate all that's out there, all that's available in Calderdale for them. They don't know where to find things. They miss things. Things become out of date very quickly when they're sat on multiple platforms. And communities have told us that they'd like to access things in one place, which really speaks to that broader vision of having an integrated digital presence, an integrated online presence, and to the idea of bringing things together into a directory. The detail of what exactly the information directory might look like in its entirety, I think it's really important that we continue to shape that through stakeholder engagement. So we know that this is something that communities are asking for. But what that looks like, what the functionality needs to be, and how we build that with communities, I think we need to do more to engage with communities on that, and to make sure that we're hearing from all parts of the community. I'm going to hand over to Kate now, who's going to talk a little bit more about the vision for this work, what we see it doing, where we see it going, and how we see it fit in as part of the wider system. Hopefully my internet held out strong for me then, and everybody's been able to hear what I've said so far.
Thanks, Naomi. I just dropped out as well, but I know we've worked together on this, so hopefully you'll be able to pick up if I drop out again. So my apologies if that happens. Kate Horn, Public Health, Healthy Communities, Healthy Places. So yeah, just following on from what Naomi has said, and I'm really sorry I missed some of what you said, Naomi, with dropping out. So please forgive me if I repeat anything. The Community Information Directory, in addressing this issue, is an enabler to connect people to assets in their community. And by assets, that encompasses community groups, activities, organisations, buildings and spaces which support people's well-being. It's an enabler to reduce
It's rather look as if we've lost Kate again.
I wasn't sure whether that was Kate's connection or my own.
Kate's.
Shall I try and pick up from where Kate got to there?
Yeah, she was halfway through the word reduce.
Reducing what? I don't know. Let's go with inequalities. Yeah, I think that the aspiration is that the directory will provide a user-friendly one-stop shop, something that, as I said, will be developed with communities to make sure that it meets the needs of the people that it will benefit most, so that it's bottom up rather than top down. I think there are some statutory duties that we can pick up as part of the information directory. The local offer for send is a key one that I think we need to really look at how we maximise the benefit of that. But there's a lot that's going on out there in the communities, as I said. I think the aspiration is that it'll bring together information that currently sits on the local authority website, on NHS and VCSE websites, with some really clever functionality, actually, so that it doesn't become something that is a beast, but something that people can tap into to find the information that's relevant to them. So some clever search and filtering functionality, so that, for example, if I want to find information on things to do with my children or to support my children, I can find that information. If I want to find information to support my own health and well-being, I can find that separately. So as I say, hopefully that helps us to meet some vast statutory requirements and some of the community asks as well. given that we don't have a single online integrated platform in its entirety, what we see is this community information directory being a back end to things that can sit across multiple platforms. So we're in the process at the moment of developing a families website, something to direct families to as part of the Family Hub's offer. But it might be that there's a separate entity for adults, and the community information directory could be embedded into both of those, and beyond if needs be, if that's what communities ask for. This is about doing with, not to. I think that's really important to keep coming back to this. This isn't about us building something that meets all our purposes in terms of streamlining things and bringing things together, but something that really works for communities. I think that's all that I think Kate was going to say in terms of the detail of our vision there. I suppose then the ask from Health and Wellbeing Board, as we begin to gain momentum with picking back up this work post-pandemic, is reaffirmation that we should continue to proceed with developing the community information directory as a system response. And a question to the board in terms of where we need to share this aspiration next to ensure that senior leaders across the system are signed up, and are on board with supporting the delivery of this, given the scale of it, given that it is, if we get it right, it's very much a system piece, pulls in lots of existing resources, existing platforms. How do we make sure that we've got that sign up, not just at Health and Wellbeing Board level, but right across the system, so that people, senior leaders across the system, understand that this is a Calderdale thing, and certainly not a public health thing.
Thanks very much, Naomi. This is something Debs and I have had previous discussions about, and I'm afraid it's one of those things where, having worked in the voluntary sector for some time before in Calderdale, I try not to say this is a conversation we've had before. It is in one sense, but actually I think with the potential to make it happen in a way that perhaps hasn't been there before, so long as we're clear that if we're committing to doing this from a local authority public health perspective, then it's a long-term commitment, because to people to buy in and have confidence, they've got to know it's going to continue to be supported. And I'm sure many of the key partners I would mention are already there, but it would certainly be well worth taking this to the leaders meeting, actually, because although it sounds quite operational, actually it isn't at all, and it needs quite a senior level of ownership to make it work. I think if I think back to my time as in the voluntary sector, what I'd want to have is confidence that it will be maintained and updated, that if my own organisation's circumstances change, or I become aware of changed information in partners and so on, I can feed that in and it will be actioned quickly, so that the information will be relevant and up to date, and as you say, so that it will be there. And so that it can be used flexibly, that we're not going to find ourselves getting caught up in, in the future in any kind of conflicts about legal ownership and of the data and that kind of stuff. I mean, with that proviso, I think actually also with kind of modern, software mapping techniques around geographical areas, I think the scope to make this useful are probably as good as they've ever been as well, because I think that was always also one of the challenge. How do you describe a service that, if you live in Old Town, how do you come up with a search that tells you about groups that are specific to Old Town, but also about Calderdale wide services that can be used by people in Old Town? And I think modern software makes that whole process much easier. So I'm very positive about it, actually, and I'm sure there are others more up to date than me who will feed in those those practical issues and concerns that we need reassurance on. Debs. Sorry, Debs, did I have...
Sorry, I didn't. If you invited me in, Chair, I didn't hear. Apologies.
I think I might have pressed mute before I did it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just if I may just pick up on one of those points about keeping up to date. There are different models that can be used, but I've developed one of these previously, and actually it was the organisations who put the information on there. It's responsibility to keep the information up to date, and if they didn't give an update within a set period of time, the stuff was removed, if that makes sense. The information was removed. But the just wanted to just add a couple of sort of, I guess, reasons why I think this will be really useful for us. One is that you'll recall, as Health and Wellbeing Board, every time, perhaps with the exception of today, actually, every time we've brought one of the updates on the 4 priority areas, and we've had the conversation about the progress that's being made and the things that are happening, there's been one or more members of the Health and Wellbeing Board have said, wouldn't it be brilliant if it was really clear and there was information about all the stuff that's going on, that's available, that's out there in our community. So it is something that members of this board have sort of talked about, and this could be one of the ways that we can resolve that. One of the things I would also say is, I guess, there's something about this being part of that system, I guess, that enables people to connect to support in the community, so that people who've got health and wellbeing challenges can connect themselves or be connected by somebody else to the things in the community that might support them with those challenges, in a way that means that we're not having to rely all the time on this army that we have of connectors, whether that's social prescribing link workers, staying well officers, or community health and wellbeing workers, etc., so that they're then freed up and able to work with the people who need help to access and need support to access them. If that makes sense. So it's almost enabling. It comes back to that sort of self-help approach, where people that are able to use a site like this to connect themselves, or the family and friends to stuff in the community, can do that. And then those people that are skilled in connecting people, that we have in our system, can work with the people that need that just extra bit of hand holding and extra bit of help to get support from the things in the community.
Thank you. Julie.
Thanks very much, Councillor Swift. Yes, just to say I'm in absolute total agreement with this. It all needs to be in one place. I just wanted to raise an issue around timescales, particularly for the local offer for children with disabilities. We do have to have a statutory published local offer, which is actually hosted on the council's website at the moment, and it's not fit for purpose. And Family Voice Calderdale, the parents of children with disabilities and special educational needs, have worked with us on the content, and it's good to go. So I just wanted to check on timescales, because I don't want there to be any delay, because what we've got on there is not accurate. There's no point changing something if we're going to move to a new platform. So, I have made a bid already through Ben Lehman Devs to say, can we be one of the first to go when this is up and running? Because I'm actually chairing the SEND Strategic Board this afternoon. So it'd be good just to have an understanding of timescales for the parents and the staff who've worked on this, to say, how long do we think it's going to be before we can get some real, kind of fit for purpose information out there? Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Neil.
Thanks, Chair. It was similar sort of concerns to what you raised, Tim, as to and sort of picking up on some of the language. Is this a must do, or is this a like to do, considering the constraints and time pressures that everyone's got in the constraints? I'm not really sure. And I'm not sure how feasible it is to get everything sort of done, and how much does that cost to do that, to get sort of benefits. Things are always out of date. Things use multiple platforms. You'll never get everything in one place, and common conception is it already is because it's on Google. I sort of get sort of local authority services and community. We funded community to help it get it in one place several times, but haven't managed to get it there, because some of it goes into the ongoing maintenance of it all. But what's the engagement with health and what you're wanting from health? Because I'm not sure we've clocked this in any of our plans for the next year, and given capacity 20 odd practices, trust, Swift engagement into that might not be forthcoming because it isn't seen as a priority at the moment. But when I'm not really clear what it is you're wanting from integrated partners on this single one-stop directory. So I get the idea. I'm just probably not fully convinced as a member of the Health and Wellbeing Board it being a top priority at the moment, or what its true purpose is, apart from bringing some things together. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Neil. Debs, do you or Naomi want to pick that one up, or it's some of that conversation outside of the meeting about specifically health facilities?
Yeah, I mean, if I may, Councillor Swift, yeah, I think we have been reporting through the Calderdale Cares community group on this work. So it has been connected into a multi-agency group within the Calderdale Cares bit of the system. But in a way, that's why we wanted to bring it. That's why Naomi and Kate wanted to bring it today, just to make sure we do have the commitment across the system for this work. I think you'll have seen in the paper some links to some of these from other places. A lot of places have done this, and I think just to go back to Julie's question, and I think Naomi, you said it, didn't you? The idea is that we do this in chunks, so we've got to get the chunks ready so that we can integrate them. So I think the local offer, absolutely, we should get the local offer ready, the local offer we need, but if you do choose to commit to this piece of work, that would be one of the chunks, if you like, that would be integrated into the bigger platform. So I wouldn't want this work to hold up the work that you're describing, Julie. It's about getting the different chunks and integrating them together. But yeah, just to answer Neil's question, I think it's not a must do. I think we are quite unusual not to have one of these. We are a little bit different to most areas I've worked in that has one of these directories, but it isn't a must do. But I think it's something about us it would enable us across our system to use our resources more effectively, to prevent the need for health services and care services to get involved with connecting people if they're able to connect themselves to the various things available in the community.
Thanks, Debs. Kate?
I'll try if my internet stays long enough, so I'm so sorry. Just in response to that, Neil, and quite similar to what Debs has said, but it's been part of the integrated health and wellbeing support for adults, and very much the stakeholders involved in that have talked about the connecting function and this being part of that. So that how far in the room in terms of that, and that highlight report goes into 3CPB, but as Debs has alluded to, I think the reason for bringing it here is where else do we need to get this in terms of raising awareness for senior leaders to support the work that's going on and to really embed it across other elements of health. And I think just picking up on that point that Debs has mentioned, it's a big ship to turn around, and how do we do that in chunks, acknowledging that it sounds like the local offer needs to be the first bit, which I know Naomi has been linking in with that.
Thank you. Caroline?
So I guess it was just in answer to what Neil was saying. I think the shift we're trying to make is towards prevention and self-care, and to therefore reduce the demand on the healthcare part of the system. And this sort of resource is very well evidenced from elsewhere to do that and to have an impact on people's ability to self-care. It's not necessarily because they're specifically health-related resources that are on the platform, but it's about improving people's ability to manage their own health and well-being, therefore reduce their dependence on health. So I think from my perspective, I think this is something that I've been very keen for Calderdale to have for a long time, to try and help us with that shift towards prevention and self-care, self-management.
Thank you. Ashley?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'd be very happy to support the reaffirmation as was requested earlier. And a little bit like Neil, I do have some concerns, but I'm not presenting these in a negative sense. and I recognise the importance of pulling the information together in a digital format, because that's the way of things and that's the way it evolves. And I do believe it's a very appropriate thing to do. My area of concern is for those who, in fact, may be more in need of these services, but may have difficulty accessing digital equipment or the appropriate digital equipment or the skills to do that. I don't think that's anything like a reason not to do it, but it's something to be aware of, because it would be a great shame, because some of those people who might be having those difficulties might be in most need of accessing that information. So I feel that maybe that's something we should add to the actions that we're taking and preempt that in some sort of way. So I say that in a very positive sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Debs?
Yeah, just to pick up on Councillor Evans' point there, one of the things that one of the ways I've seen these systems be used really well previously is the, you know, you can carry, they're on your mobile phone, and even people that are digitally excluded probably know somebody that's got a mobile phone, and also that they're available on websites, in libraries and community venues. So, for example, in Dudley, we had them in GP practices on sort of kiosks, so that you could just sort of press touch screen and use them in various sort of community settings. But you know, you're absolutely right that this isn't going to be the panacea for everybody, but there's something about how they can enable us, I guess, to connect people that aren't digitally connected to support in the community. So it almost be done by family, friends, workers in community settings, etc.
Sorry, could I just very quickly come back on that? So that's good to hear. I guess that we need to signpost people to how they could access those things. That's all I would add. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Kate?
Yeah, it was just in response to that, and I think this is where the engagement's really important, isn't it? That when we engage with our communities, that we're including exactly those groups and the digitally excluded that you mentioned, Councillor Evans. I think that's really important. I think the other thing to share that we learned during the pandemic as well, this is about supporting professionals and our workforce out